Okay. Hi, everyone. Welcome. My name is Amanda Iglesias, and I'm the Food Access Coordinator at nofamass. Today, you're attending Ishkay, Yachai, Ancestral Indigenous Pedagogy for a Good Life. The presenter today is Ninari Chimba Santillan. Ninari is an Indigenous lesbian woman from the Panzaleo and Otavalo towns of Ecuador. At age 27, she performs her work as a teacher, artist, singer, songwriter, researcher, consultant, and workshop leader through the lenses of anti-racism, Indigenous ecofeminism, anti-patriarchy, decolonization, and above all, that of her peasant upbringing. An internationally recognized Indigenous activist, she has been an active member for the past 6 years in the Batuca Batumba, a feminist drumming activist collective, and is a member of various collectives, including Yasunidos, Runa Feministas, Saramanta Warmicuna, Women Leaders Defending Nature at the National Level, COIQ, or a coordinator of Indigenous organizations in Quito, Ecofeminist Perspective Collective, Ecuador, and Ayu Watanaki in Peru, working for food sovereignty and revitalization of Andean rituals. She works as a primary school teacher at the Yachai Wasi in Quito with children of various backgrounds, and is also an actress and radio broadcaster. Before we jump in, I have a few details I want to review with everyone joining us today. Para acceder a la interpretación, hay que hacer clic en el icono del mundo en la parte de abajo de la pantalla Zoom. Si está en la aplicación en un teléfono o tableta, tiene que hacer clic en más o los 3 puntos y seleccionar interpretación de idiomas. Ahí podrá seleccionar su idioma. Si está en el navegador web o un Chromebook, o si accede al taller llamado por teléfono, no se puede escuchar la interpretación. Activen la interpretación en el icono del mundo que encuentran en la parte inferior. Seleccionen el canal de español para escuchar la interpretación. Seleccione el canal en inglés si quiere escuchar la charla en inglés. For our English speakers, click on the globe icon at the bottom of the screen and select your preferred language. If you're in an app on a phone or tablet, click on the 3 dots and select language in the menu. If you're on a web browser or a Chromebook or dialed in by phone, unfortunately, you can't listen to the interpretation. Choose your language by clicking the world icon at the bottom of your screen and choose your preferred language. Okay. This conference is presented on land that has been stewarded by Indigenous people since before European colonization. As we work to heal the destruction caused by colonization, we appreciate your support, solidarity, and continued learning. If you would like, we'd love for all of you to share in the chat whose land you're calling in from. I'm calling in from land from the Nanatak and Patamtak. And Ninari, I'm not sure if you want to share where you're calling in from. Lovely.
I am from Cotopaxi, Ecuador.
Thank you.
Amanda,
Yes.
there's one request in the chat to talk a little slower in Spanish or with Indigenous words.
Perfect. Thank you. With Buen Vivir as our theme, we aim to bring light the ancestral wisdoms of Indigenous peoples of the Global South, including the Aymara, Quechua, and Mapuche people. We celebrate that restorative agriculture is rooted in longstanding cultural practices of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color. In an agricultural system built on stolen land and the forced labor and exploitation of Black, Indigenous, and other people of color, our conference aims to center equity in our food system. Here are some ways you can center racial equity in your communities. If you have some groups that are in your area, please feel free to share them with others in the chat. We also want to share a big thank you to our partner level sponsors, Stonyfield Organic, as well as a number of other sponsors who help to make our conference possible. We encourage you to purchase from them, and when you do, let them know you appreciate their support of nofamass. Here are some more of those sponsors. If you'd like, please bring a soil sample from your home and visit the soil health table on Saturday. nofamass staff will be available to offer technical assistance and recommendations. Lastly, we've got some incredible items to bid in our online auction. Please visit the link that we'll share in the chat to see the lineup and bid. At this point, I'd love to turn it over to Ninari.
Can I start?
Please.
Before that I start, I would like not some of the terms not to be translated. Quechua that it's my original language. These words are wawa, that signifies child, children, human or non-human. And this is very important to have it in the context that I use. And the other word is aeyo, that means family, human or non-human. And to also ask the people who is listening that we consider that a part of understanding the rights of nature and the Pachamama is to start to be part of this language justice. That is to start to listen, to pronounce the interpreters, the people who are interpreting and the people who listen. My grandma used to tell Rosa, talk, don't forget the Rumashimi, this human who is in contact with the earth, this capacity to speak to the earth, because Quechua is the language that the birds listen, that the earth listens. Do not speak them in Spanish. Because of this reason, I am asking these two words not to be translated, and the people who is listening, open your ears so you can understand when I use it in the workshop. I also want to thank you. I want to thank the Apus, my grandmas, Mashi Laurita, Mashi Fernando, my parents, and the people who are bridges that help us to share my infancy, how I have lived and how this has been built, this pedagogy. I will do it in two parts. The first part will be more to understand the reasons from the logos, to recognize right now that the indigenous people, that because we have been in the school, university, that has been a way of colonizing and take away that romanticization of us being indigenous and non-indigenous that we have internalized. That's the problem. The necessity and the urgency to return and to return the pedagogy that start from the ancestral wisdom, but also the demands of the indigenous abuelos and abuelas, grandmas and grandpas. I will tell you about this. This first part will be about why. Why is it important to remember and reconstruct us as indigenous people? These pedagogies that come from grandfathers and grandmothers that now that we have make a system that go in this way of the logos in the Occidental ways, that the majority of you have shown us how to receive this information, and it's not bad, but we need to see where are we, what's our framework where we are giving the information and getting this information. How do we return to Earth and to other places as well? The second part will be some videos, because I can tell you some of the things I do with children that I work with, but I also want to show their faces, because I think it's important, and see some pictures of my work, small things that we have worked with the results that we have, and not only work, but live it from this pedagogy. And finally, we will do something that we're gonna live together, that all of us will share and live it together. Something that I do with the children I work with. So now we will start. Can you all see? Nice. Today I want to talk about this place. If we see this image, this is very important for me, because it's not only the geography, but also the community and principles that take us in Ecuador, the first country where nature has rights in our constitution. So this is our space, so that you can see what I'm gonna share with you today. In reality, this place is the utopic dream of our grandmothers or grandfathers that were sometimes killed for this to be happening. This project is a community project, a project of my family, of the community, a project of education and crianza, that are two ways of seeing it. This is a way of educating and helping children to grow. This is also why I'm here sharing what we do. Also, I feel that it's urgent to reparate, to reparate the children, the infancies that we still are in these spaces. But now we see to the future, we don't see down, because now the people who we live in the cities, we recuperate the earth under the cement. So today, this is the work I come to share with you. So this is the Yachai Wasi. And I start with this question. Where is the wisdom that we have lost in our knowledge? And now, where is the knowledge that we have lost in information, in the digital information? And this brings us to think what we have lost with education, with the methodologies, with the pedagogies that have imposed from all territories in the United States, in Ecuador. We have lost these pedagogies, these ways of teaching that we need to repair, historically repair. now I have been able to study and be a protagonist of our own education, because things that we have protested and be activists and that have cost lives. Well, here, this is an image. It's a little bit blurry, but this is the first book that we created, that if we can see it, even though it's a little bit blurry, is this game. I don't know if you have played. This is something that the Wawas love to play. That is a rope that we pull. I don't know if you have pulled. I don't know if this is something you play where you're from. I can see that you play. This image, this game represents for us this pedagogy. How we are meeting now with children, with the young people and the older people. It's this power that is pulling Occident, what we call the progress from these other cultures, other cultures that have colonized, that now have different faces, Black and brown people. These are their realities, but this culture, this modern Occident that it's pulling, that has all the colors in the faces, the original, but here we are, the original, the people who work and they work the earth, that it's pulling. They are both pulling. It's the reality of a lot of infancies. Maybe it's a reality from what is pulling more. What is pulling more? What is winning more? What has more power? Does it have more power to live from the ancestral wisdom, or is it pulling more the modern knowledge? Or what globalization, capitalism, consumism is? This is the way we live. This is how infancy's childhood looks like now, because now they have technology from food and other things. This is a reality that we live when we live in the cities. This is the way people of color looks our lives. This is why this is a fight, a constant fight to be in the city but not lose my roots, to live from where I come from and not get lost in the city. This is complex, but also comes from the knowledge that the grandparents have shared with us. They used to say this in a long time, that it was very violent and very painful when the invasion happened, when the grandparents and grandmothers knew that this was happening. They didn't imagine the level of violence, but they knew that this was going to happen. That in Peru, they used to say, the grandmas used to tell this, that the condor and the águila the grandparents will say, this is very, very sad times are coming. So a lot of them went to the mountains, but the prophecy came that there will be, that the condor and the eagle will fly together. So this is worked as a philosophical work, but also this necessity of how do we live in this world. Have we asked ourselves, do I know how to live where I am, even if I'm indigenous or from the United States, from the work I do? when we were Wawas, some way they guide us to live in this world that we are now. So now, here is
so here
very
for us, it's very
important for us
to know that when we're talking about Indigenous peoples, we have to think about the geographic realities and that we're in, in full capital. And we've taken up the concrete thanks to our grandfathers, grandparents. And we have earth to plant. Farmers can find that space and that trust to be bicultural, where they can produce and cultivate biodiversity. So for us, it's important, thinking about Indigenous peoples. You also have to situate ourselves in the geographic, in the epistemic, in which those places that we dwell. So understand those two different worlds, because they are two different worlds, those different contexts, those two different cosmologies and realities, and think about it from a global view, thinking about health, think about the rights of the planet, of the Mother Earth. The Ishkay in Quechua in language means Ishkay means two different knowledges, two bodies of knowledge, to learn to educate ourselves and to sort of raise ourselves up within those two different ways of understanding the world. So at the grandmothers say, to learn to walk with both feet, we have to be connecting to both those places. There's two different territories in Latin America, erased for other pedagogies, but in other contexts. But even so, there's still that memory. And so to understand a little bit, like, what does their education system look like here? Why is it so important for us to understand this, to understand our pedagogy? These two different worlds, these two different ways of seeing education, the Hispanic education and the intercultural bilingual education that we have here in Ecuador. And so in the intercultural education, what we're trying to do is recuperate, to regain that knowledge from the Andean cosmology, and to find the consensus with that. So we're looking from here at the vision, at the mission, and it's very different than the sort of conventional, traditional. We put in between question marks, in between, supposed education, and put this in a place of within the context of global education, its development. And so their ideals, which are responding to, which are, like coming from the culture. Our education, our school specifically, and our pedagogy, our mission and our vision is to affirm diversity and the importance of ayup, the recovering that knowledge and all of the, the human, the more than human. It's different, the mission that we have of this kind of education. It's really like, tackling all of those issues. What does it mean progress? What does it mean development? And so this objective that we have is to overcome that many different people, including Indigenous people, people with their doctorates, say, oh, we have to get over this environmental problem. We've already, we have to talk about that. The earth that's something, that's old news. We have to, move past that. And what does that mean to forget about our traditions and to forget about that knowledge? Those have been the objectives that people are thinking about within each system. In Spanish here, it's a little. And where does that bring us? In reality, each territory finds us exactly like the hen in this photo. Because in each territory, in the original territories. The childhoods we have, the upbringings we have, the social context put us in this habit, trying to inhabit the same territory, but without that memory. It put us in this place of forgetting. And sometimes we don't even realize that there we are, just like this hen. And with the golden eggs, what are those golden eggs? So in the wawas, and they're underneath the cement. These golden eggs that's our ancestral wisdom, and they're dying, Why? Because grandmothers and grandfathers are forgetting, and we have to recognize that. We can't romanticize it. The fact that now, I've learned a lot of things, and I can transmit that, I can share that, but I haven't had, and I hope that in the future, yes, to ask ourselves, what kind of grandparents are we going to be? Cultivators, farmer grandfathers, grandmothers, spending our days connected to the earth, being guardians of our language. And now we haven't turned around to look, because there's so much in front of us. And so to understand a little bit, these two different worlds, it's not to say that, like one is worse than the other, but to understand the dynamics that exist, because that's what we're fighting. That's what we're struggling with you, right? To understand, about what are the rights of nature. And so to understand the civilization, the Western civilization, modern, that promotes Buen Vivir, it has its priorities upside down. And it has, all of that externalized to the outside world. You understand that. I don't know any Western civilization, modern Western civilization, that understands Buen Vivir, and paradoxically has priorities upside down, and because of all that energy that's put in towards the outside world, which has its interest being very well defined. And we have to realize that, to really rethink, what are the needs? What are human needs? Our first memories, our first childhoods. We'll go to the next one, to the next image. Here a little bit to help us understand, why is there such an urgence to return to this knowledge? And that's to know that the biosphere is showing signs of exhaustion, and this capacity to regenerate itself has been affected. And this is really overly romanticized, and this idea of Mother Earth. And because that's why they say climate change, but we know that it's not like that in its moments. But now, if we realize here that the concentration of CO2 in the atmosphere, the emissions of CO2, all of the junk that is being generated, those are things that Mother Earth, as a life, she can't digest them. And so exactly what we need to do as children of Mother Earth, and Indigenous children, as Wawas of Mother Earth, be part of being that community with her, of Ayo, to support her ability to be able to regenerate. So now I'm going to share the second part. Here it is. So this pedagogy, Ishkay Yachay, and it's through this way that our Indigenous accents say, well, being Indigenous, we're realizing that also Indigenous communities we're being now part of all this contamination, all of this garbage that, before it wasn't like that. And now, thanks to, and since all this progress, this colonization, that really alienates and kills these senses, our abilities to hear the earth, to be able to converse. And that's been, you know, like killed through schooling also. What other kind of schooling do we look for? A school that, you know, proposes to have a different kind of education that allows us to live in this world together in Ayo. And together, it's not just, you know, referring to the association of human society, but it has to be connected to things that are together with our Mother Earth. And in this way, together, it's a ritual that we make. It's a ceremony as a modern ritual. What's missing? How do we learn to live together? And so this pedagogy that allows us to live together in this earth, from the cities and also in the countryside. As Grimaldo Rengifo said, a compañero anthropologist from Peru says, the teaching is to be happy. We're putting into words the way that these things are linked, the academics socializing, that, you know, many of us don't live in the country, and this learning how you learn respect. And, you know, when you raise chickens, for instance, this respect, it's not anthropocentric. It's where we're beginning to recuperate our ability to joke, to laugh, to play, and that has to be translated into schooling. And so what are we looking for in education, in this pedagogy? What are we looking for? What are we trying to reach at? A pedagogy that allows us to recognize, if we don't heal the colonial pain and hurt, all people, white, indigenous, brown, there's no way for us to be able to live in these countries for years. There's no way to be coherent and to continue in the defense of nature. There's simply no way. And so it's very important. This education is this raising up our knowledge's way, includes that healing, the colonial pain and hurt and trauma in and between the countryside and the science, in between ancestral science and modern Western science, in between feminine and masculine, and then the energies there. They're not, you know, like imposed genders. They're energies that come from a reason and enter into the heart. And so those are the kind of childhoods that create whole adults. How do we create? How is it possible? It is possible to create this kind of coherence. Of course it's possible. I've been part of this. And before, I'd like to share with you, how do we create this kind of coherence? And how do we regain that respect that leads to that kind of coherence? This is a critical education of humans, of Mother Earth, and if you have a community of all ages, the Ayo. Children that will be, you know, like dealing with climate crisis and the human loneliness. And that's important to give that, you know, that give that importance. There's so much there that this work is, if we have to recognize the relation in between these different territories and the territories in which we live, and these different worlds in which we live, and give us, you know, make us realize that we have to defend the rights of Mother Earth. We have to understand we are Ayu. Something is happening with this member of Ayu, which is the humans. They're understanding themselves to be very alone. It's beginning, you know, always from the global north. And because of that, it's important that you all understand and listen this pedagogy of the global south. And despite the technology, in spite of, there's a loneliness, a human uniqueness that creates a energy so big that opens more colonization, that opens collective destiny. And completely when we speak in defense of nature. And here's some information to kind of help us realize. Suicide is the third most common way of death for young people in the United States. And the suicide in between the European youth is also, numbers are huge. And what's happening here? What does this mean? Where is it coming from? The deficit of Mother Earth, a great shakeup of Las Wawas and the Wawas indigenous as well. Indigenous Wawas that are also living in their communities. What is it that's happening then? So there's this translation or sort of a movement of this loneliness. There's a profound sadness. Something was broken there. So that we're in Ecuador, the third country that more and more, there's more in between 2020 and 2021, Ecuador had 12.791 tons of garbage came from the United States. And from their countries to ours, we're going to be able to find our way of fighting back against that, of speaking out against that. And from there, to learn to recognize how to return to be children of Mother Earth. That so many of you all, like you all, I'm sure, are looking for, just like us. But we need to have that recognition of how we're living, and how that's being lived in the different territories, in the face of violence, in the way that in garbage. It's making vulnerable the rights of the collective Mother Earth. It's very difficult if we don't recognize that. It's difficult to recognize it. It's going to be difficult to, and that's what we're looking for. What we're looking for in this pedagogy is how do we wake up our emotions, wake up our inner lives in the face of climate change. And if that doesn't hurt, then it's lost. In conferences, it's not going to work. So that's part of the pedagogy also. If we can continue speaking about all of these things that we have to think about, and that our Wawas, they know it very well. At 5 years old, they already know it very well. Nationally, globally also, because we don't underestimate their understanding of the Wawas. So in this image here, it really moves me a lot, because I feel like it's super important and part of repairing the pains, the colonial hurts, is to recover our memory, and to recover that memory, which implies social justice. We're looking for an education that includes social justice, and the principles of that are to recognize the reparation and redistributing. And so in this way, this recognition, what happened before? What is it that permits me to be here? This is fundamental, because part of the school, whether it's colonial or, it really brings us back to individualism. I know, including Indigenous people. Oh, there's Indigenous people that go to the cops and they say, the sociedad has us like this, like pulling us. And if we don't recognize those bases, those profound, deep roots that we have, that the grandfathers and grandmothers say, if they haven't, been raised up as Wawas, we have to recognize it's necessary to name those things, and to be grateful, and to put our faces, because what is it that has allowed me to be here right now? Oh, there's a lot of faces missing here, but from the Yachai. Okay, so pains, those are the pioneers of education. And thanks to them, we're here. There's a campesino Indigenous woman who is not literate. And thanks to Rosa Maria. And those are my grandparents. And thanks to them, and to the efforts that they made, the violence that they survived, and such a racism that was so incredibly violent. And their capacity to be able to save, they bought land that now, thanks to them, many Wawas, boys and girls, are, we're able to grow up on that. And we have that space now that we're going to continue working for the Wawas. And then we have Laura Santillan, who was the founder. That was my father and my mother. And they said, no, we're not going to send our children, our Wawas, to the school. We don't know what's going to happen, but there has to be another space. Because thanks to the pains that we feel and so many compañeros that stood up for Indigenous people, it's so important to create another space. So that is Randi Randi, the reciprocity, to think about who came before us. And part of life, Pachamama, the Mother Earth gives us, it's not just food. It's not just food, it's not at all. She gives us our fortune, our food, sure, of course, but in this capacity also the ability to converse with her and to stay there. And part of it is like that, thanks to many compañeros and compañeras. So CBSA Yachai Wasi was founded as a trilingual educational center, Español, Quechua, and English, and it was legally founded in 2001. But illegally 5 years before, because we can count 70 boys and girls who are of different diverse cultures who are part of it. And look at them here, like working with these seeds. Wawas, Black Wawas and Indigenous Wawas, campesinos, Indigenous to urban areas, and they're different contexts. So Wawas who are white and Wawas who are of color. And these two different spaces in the farm here and in the space, but also in these games, in the notebooks that they're working in, sometimes in computers also, but it's part of their learning to kind of habit to live, to dwell in both of those worlds. And that's part of our pedagogy. See this little video here? What does it help us understand about human rights? It's about human health, because unfortunately, this is how we've been raised, from a place that is very anthropocentric, and it was very important to hear things from that point, because if you hear people talk from the other side of the street, as you say, it makes it more difficult, because there's the formation has been so anthropocentric that it's always spoke about from this human perspective. So to speak from that point, to try to go on remembering, to recuperate those memories, to be able to end up with this knowledge and understanding of what is health, and how does that include Mother Earth. And so again, it's really important to repair, to heal. So we've assumed that it's kind of taken on this commitment from our hearts, from our spirits, towards the defense of Mother Earth. And we have to restore ourselves to be able to do that well, to do it in a coherent way, without just being like a discourse. It's easier to kind of make it a discourse, and that's good. It's part of it too, to be part of the moon of the world that people live in. But for us, it also is a fundamental, how do we create this word, this discourse that that brings us forward. So part of this for us is to work in the raising up our memories, growing a different kind of memory from a collective spirit and as humans, but also there, as we go on working in that also directly with this collective spirit that includes our ancestors. So now we're going to hear this is in a festivity, in a party. that we do here with the Wawas. In which we are recovering those historic memories. And you could say in these dates, in these days, it's kind of like similar to the Dia de los Muertos, Day of the Dead. And for us, it's Veranakwe, which is for our families, so that we, as we move forward, that we also are, like also it's for our ancestors. And, and also the Wawas. So it includes part of that, a different education, to have you can bring a photo of their dog. There's a rupture with that anthropomorphic education. So the Wawas bring a picture of a pet that died, and they want also to name them. And for them, it's important to sing to them and to say, your spirit continues accompanying us. And so when we talk about human health, inevitably, we have to talk about what does the road look like to get there. And so we have to we return to our traditional knowledge, indigenous knowledge, and racialized knowledge from being raised up that way, from the collective spirit for a collective community health. So for that community health and also individual health, those things go together. And in the Andean cosmology, we call ourselves body. But it's not just the union of the biology with mental. It's also an entity of entities. And every entity that dies here has an animate energy that takes care and watches out for the ayo, for the external. And there's also, I have an ayo here that lives in me. And that the energy, that spirit, generated from the body, how important is that? It migrates from the body to another, and it has that capacity to migrate out of the body and to leave that system. And when that happens, and that can cause a sickness, including death. That's part of the indigenous knowledge. And so the quantum physics, they're putting it in physical, scientific terms, in academic terms, that is saying something similar. And so part of our indigenous ancestral knowledge is that you have this ayo in you, and it can migrate, and it can leave us. It can leave out of us, and the attributes that our grandfathers and grandmothers might have said. Call yourself Ninari, come, Ninari, let's go, because this anima, those energies there, they're living. And so they can say, oh no, this place is so pretty, why don't I stay here? But my body is walking. It could be that my body went somewhere that there's not a lot of heart, maybe I hurt myself, or I got hurt, they hurt me, and I say, oh, the energy might say, nope, I'm staying right here. Oh, like you stay, like you're sad, you feel hurt, and so that it keeps going on like that. That there's like a rupture, a breaking of the spirit, and it's individual at the same time as it is also collective. And then afterwards, you might not even know, what is it that's happening to me? Why do I feel like this like existential crisis that I'm in? What is that? What is important for us to think about human health, including all of that, and to create a historical memory, and from that to recuperate, to recover everything that is internal and also that comes out and extends into the community. And so we're going to be hear a little bit of the song of the Wawas. This is a song we sing to our dead, to our ayos.
Okay, only until the video. We also do the guaguitas of bread, the bread that is a root, originary root that is also, it's a bread that has maíz negro. This singing is from the guaguas that comes from the abuelas, from their aunts, so we can call them and say and find the path and the path that we have to follow for the next generations. Here, there very interesting things happen. This year, we have had a lot of Black people that also want to recuperate singing and music that comes from this element, air, that's also near our organ, the heart, to sing us, to sing ourselves, to sing the originary songs. As Indigenous teachers, it's been very interested to also teach children who are Black, who can also see their culture. At least in Ecuador, it also, there is a different context, but there is also racism that's been in the system of health and education, economic systems that see us as separated with Indigenous, Black. It has also been very nice to tell the children, ask your children, your abuelas, your grandmothers. They don't live in Quito, in the city. They live in Esmeraldas, farther away from where they are from. So it's very important that the teacher who is teaching them, that the teacher will come with them to bring the soul to their teaching, because it's urgent to tell the guaguas that have the privilege to still have their grandmothers to have community. We brought some songs, some students from Afro Esmeraldas. They wanted to name ancestors that were brought here as slaves. So they were a very important moment. They wanted to name them and recuperate that memory, that historic memory, to understand the justice and a way to understand reparations. And with this, we work and we talk, because it's important to defend the rights of nature, because this is how we start teaching the spiritual justice, individually and collective. This takes us to name the people who have passed. In here, I wanted to show you a little bit what we did. This was a couple months later that we named the people who the government has killed, just because they were defending the people who are the most poor, are the people who work the earth. The people who look like the earth are the poorest in my country. There is also these types of spiritual justice, remembering the people who are activists, taking the governments, how they describe ourselves, who defend the rights of nature as sometimes as terrorists. So we ask the spirits to give us strength. Now we're gonna see another video. The internet is a little bit slow. I'm gonna let it download. Another way to understand our teaching method is to also understand this rupture between the two worlds, the modern Occident. It has given more value to the logos than the tangible, the earth, the feelings, the heart. Can you hear me? Sorry, my computer is about to die. Give me 1 second. Just one moment. Just a moment, please. Okay, perfect. I am back. You can hear me, right? Yeah, I apologize. Thank you. Okay, as I was telling you, understanding the rupture between humans and nature is fundamental for us. The anthropocentrism that lives in our daily practices. This is stories that I want to show you. When we have to repair the nature and human, there is a topic that we talk about the body. Here I work with Wawas of 5 years, that the results are so beautiful because when we talk about bodies, we don't only talk about the human body, but we teach them to mention, to know the parts of their bodies, but also this is a perspective that is anti-patriarchy, to respect bodies, but also from an ancestral knowledge, like the fire, the Yaku Mama, the water has also a body. One time I was walking outside and it was when the bees were flying, and with time the guaguas are not afraid of them anymore. And I hear the guagua, one of the guaguas talking to one of the bees to ask permission. So when I see this, I say, yes, I was able to break the anthropocentric, when someone touches the other living being only with their consent. So we talk about sexual violence or reproductive. We are talking about respect and to respect the other. And when they have broken these, when they know the respect that I have for the other children, for the other, for me, I have the same, I have to ask for permission, even if it's a bee or a person. This Wawa was asking permission. Can I touch your wings? And I see this. And what is the child, what is he gonna say? What it's gonna do when they don't talk back in their own language? And when I asked, did the bee tell you something? The Wawa said, yes, it gave me permission. This same Wawas asked, can you ask me Quechua? Because, and ask, why would you want to learn? And he said, because maybe if I speak to them in Quechua, the bee will understand me. So then we think how we need to reparate these relationships between nature and humans. These concepts, we can say feminist, anti-patriarchal, when we talk about us, when we talk about our bodies, our pleasures, we also think of the bodies that are non-human, that this Wawa was very natural to ask the plant, can I touch you? Sometimes they say yes, and sometimes they say, the plants say no, and they just don't touch them. So they have these principles of caring. So this video, it's festivity that we have here that's called Pauca Raime. That is the time of flourishing. It's in February, March, that these Wawas, these two are from two different indigenous groups. These two Wawas are called charismatic authors. And then there is, in the 21st of December, there is another festivity that we give the power, or the community power. These are the Wawas that have shown this caring to the little ones, or the humans, for the plants, for the seeds. These two Wawas in the image are called charismatic authorities. They will be guiding the festivity that is happening. We talk about the health of the planet from a place of reparation, with the relationship that we have with the expression we use, the Andean expression, it's the relationship with the beings that are in community. There's two principles that I have mentioned, education and crianza, upbringing. There are two concepts, two ways of seeing. This is the upbringing. This is what we want. These are the guides. This is what we are working as educators in the Andes. It's very common to hear from the indigenous chacareras, same as I bring the potato brings me. The potato is experientially between humans, humans and nature, that is stuck in the modern culture. if we don't understand the relationship, it will be very difficult to repair and defend her. So here we're gonna see the festivities with our guaguas. Here an important, when we are talking about the reparations, how important it is the chakra to recuperate what profoundly means the interculturality. That's where we see the guaguas put clothes in the corn because how they clothes. Also the seeds, the small seeds are like the children, like the guaguas. Also the seeds want to dance, so they dance with them. The guaguas might fight, they want to dance, they want to really dance with them. They look like us, they are growing as us. And it happens that when we harvest, there is a festivity where we harvest the smaller corn. This is the most, the ancestral dream that maybe one day there is gonna be no racism, and there will be interculturality. We were harvesting and we have recuperated corn, that there is diversity in corn with different colors. So in one of those, the guaguas were harvesting, and one of the Afro-Ecuadorian guaguas came from a very violent school. What happens with racism and breaks us and lose respect for community and the earth, and with ourselves, how we look at the earth as us, how we look. What happened with this guagua? He was harvesting and finds a corn that was black and mashi. He was saying mashi, mashi, what means friend. He was saying mashi, mashi ninari. He was so happy. What an ancestor, the way of repairing this other guagua. How we repair with looking at the new corn. Look, mashi ninari, it's like me, it looks like me. It was a black corn, and the first time he was represented, and is a justice principle. And if we don't repair, we don't see racism as a global problem, very alarming, we will not be able to to mitigate the crisis, the climate crisis, or to push the original people's knowledge. A lot of people that show love to the Mother Earth, they sometimes want to not recognize the violence of racism and that has happened. And some people want to just think it's peace and love, but this is the work we have to do. The racism sometimes is very violent, so we have to work in it. So this guagua, that it changed a lot. For first time, he felt represented, and he started eating differently. We show the different corn that had different colors. This being looks like us. It's breaking the anthropocentrism, how they see themselves in the earth. How important it is to see myself in the corn, to see myself in the earth, to see myself in the water. This gives you feelings and emotions. We think of it, it's not anymore about the thinking of the crisis, but more about like making us conscious of our environment and being conscious of we don't want to ruin what we are seeing. This guagua had their smile back, how important it is representation. This was very important for us because we understood how to work better in a living way, in this way of teaching, having a teaching method that brings interculturality. The chakra is it's the most important thing. The earth where we cultivate, it's so important in our teaching method because we have rituals and we sing and all of this. As part of our teaching method is also the territorial health, because for the Andean, it's the upbringing, everything is upbringing. Like the example before, the potato it's upbringing us. The corn, it's being part of my upbringing. This corn, this black corn, was also helping in the upbringing of this child, of this guagua.
Ninari, thank you so much. I'm so sorry to interrupt, but I just want to make a note that we're coming up on time, and we will need to wrap up shortly. But thank you so much for everything that you've been sharing today.
Okay, thank you. Can I have 1 minute
Of
to
course,
finish?
please, yes.
I'm gonna finish with this part because part of our teaching method is to vinculate the ancestral wisdom, but to centralize in a critical thinking with justice in ecology, linguistic, and not from a romantic place, but from a place of thinking that the patriarchy, from 5 years old to 12 years old, all the knowledge is transversal. Ecofeminism, to think about from the actual terms, diversity, gender diversity, to think from not a patriarchy, to understand femininity, that it's in all children, all beings, that we also can understand this from a living place, from Mother Nature. This is very important for us to be transversal in these themes. For example, the mathematics in the justice. For example, understanding that mathematics has also been part of the problem, for example. So how do we do it in this teaching method? How do we teach the Occidental? How do we teach? How does this Occidental teaching support the original wisdom? For example, when we teach the mathematics, for example, a woman is violented every 24 hours. So the Wawas understand that math says and teaches to denunciate, to declare what is happening. So we are working problems very great, very things like, for example, the killing of women. They right away understand the math of how many women have been violated, but through math, but at the same time, they are understanding the violence that happens in the earth. For example, how can I also talk about the women who are taking the language, for example, a math that for the justice that wakes up the emotions, that wakes up the heart. That's the message I want to give. Thank you, Yachai Chani.
Ninari, thank you so much. Everyone is commenting on how much you've shared and how meaningful it has been. We thank you. We're unfortunately running out of time and we will need to end it there, but we want to thank you so much for everything you've shared with us today. I have a few announcements before we wrap up, and we'll be dropping links in the chat, so be sure to grab those before the Zoom closes. Now is a great time to give us feedback about this session. Here is a link to our online evaluation, and if you can't get to it now, the sooner the better. And we've got some incredible items that we would love folks to bid on for our online auction. These proceeds will support our year-round programming and advocacy work. So if you're able, please bid generously. Once again, please join me in thanking Ninari for her time and her incredible work, and also for sharing the stories of that work. We are all so grateful to be able to learn from your wisdom and from your dedication and hard work. So thank you so much.
Yachai Chan. Thank you.